anymore. We're going to do outings, and we're going to pick an awesome outing from the week that was. And it was a pretty tough call this week, I think. First perfect game since Felix did it in 2012. It was Domingo Germán in Oakland. And how we went about cutting it was grabbing some of the pitches that, really stood out early, and then the final 3 outs of that perfect game in Oakland. So Domingo does it with 3 pitches. He does it with a really high spin curveball, a really high spin fastball, and a changeup that he'll mix in. But he was, I think, 55% curveball during this perfect game. And that's the first couple that I want to show you here. This is him against Ryan Noda, second hitter of the game. And that doesn't look like a good spot, but he got a really awkward swing from Noda.
Yeah, well, you can also see how far off to the left on the rubber he is, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I set up. You'll see, curveball typically here, right, shape-wise. That ball is appearing to go the opposite way. So to Noda, this ball actually goes away from him. Even though it's spinning like it's going to come back, you see he swings under. That's because of the angle that he's throwing it at, right? So if you think about if I threw that pitch to you from directly on this camera, it would spin like this. If I throw it from over here and I throw it the same way, you're going to see the other side of the ball, and it's going to seem like it's falling to his arm side, right? Yeah. So his eyes are telling him this ball has to come back to me, and it doesn't. Now, would he ever want to throw this pitch on purpose? No.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question.
That is the beauty of the curveball is there's some spray that you can throw with that pitch that is super effective, right?
So those are the effective mistakes, right? The slider can do that too, right? Where it backs up on you.
I would argue that he throws a slider, right? The movement on this thing is not super big, but however he throws it, it's probably a spike breaking ball if I had to guess, just because it's kind of straight and a little bit smaller. And you'll see it on these other ones. It's just a different shape. It's just down from the hand. There's no go and grab on like you would see on most curveballs. We had a guy on my college team named Hayden Stone that threw a breaking ball a lot like this. He was unbelievable and then got hurt and whatever. But it's that knuckle that keeps the thing straight for a long time, and then. But, I don't know the numbers on his breaking ball. Looking at it, it's probably in between a curveball and a slider.
What's the difference between, because the first pitch that Jack used was kind of an example of that backup breaking ball, and that's where you get some of the most uncomfortable swings from hitters. Yep. What's the difference between that breaking ball that effectively backs up and just kind of a cement mix or a one that just hangs?
Yeah, I would say the one that people kill is average, not low enough. The one that acts like they think it's going to act and then ends up in an area that you can get it, right? Those are the hangers. These backup ones we always call them overhung. Like I hung it too much, he couldn't even hit it, right? Yeah. Backup, you call it backup slider or overhung curveball. You'll see pop-ups and really weird swings. But yeah, if he doesn't throw a spike breaking ball, I'd be really, really surprised, just because you don't really see those two throws out of a traditional curveball.
That's interesting because you think, and I think a lot of baseball watchers will think about a curveball, and a hung curveball is something that is middle. Like, hey, that's the spot where you don't want to throw it. Nobody thinks about a flattened out curveball, I guess, up and out, but that's what he got away with.
Yeah, and you can see here, if you think about throwing that pitch, right, you're trying to get this finger to the front of the ball. So for me, I throw this kind of fingers off or barely on. And so it's really based on this finger, and then this one gets out of the way. If you have that knuckle, it's the same thing. It's getting out of the way. But the way he moves left in his delivery, you're going to get this weird pronation that happens, and you're going to get these spinner backups. And then when he really gets on one and clips the front, even though he's moving left, it's going to be a straight down movement like he gets. And, has made he's been around a while now. He's made a pretty good career out of that breaking ball. I think that's what everyone kind of remembers him for. Let's keep going.
Yeah. No, I mean, you got fastballs here, and he's a high spin guy. He's
Yeah.
well over 2,500, and I'm sure a lot of people will point out that he's been tossed from a game for having something that might have been a spin enhancer. But listen, like, he's spinning the shit out of these fastballs.
Yeah.
They were all 2450 to 2550.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the old, like, you can't put lipstick on a pig thing. Like, you're going to have to spin the ball a little bit to even spin it like that, especially in today's rules. Like, if he's used something like that's still spinning it really good, right? And there's a efficiency to his throw, but you can see he's kind of got these two different ones. They're similar. Velos move a little different, like just enough to keep guys off balance. This ball probably felt like it was at this guy's hip, just the way that he's moving off of the mound, right? Like, this looks pretty straight. This is something that has helped me in my career, is that I'm so far to the left on the mound that pitch into lefties starts. It's that front hip thing, but it's a four-seam fastball because you're so far over there that to spin it efficiently, he's getting so far left that ball has to be moving to the right to even get to that spot. And you can see that this guy sees that pitch, thinks it's up and in, tries to go at it, and it just runs away from him. And it's kind of hard to, interesting to say that it runs away from him up and in to a lefty, but that's what's happening. That's why he's under, right?
Yeah. And then you've got this one that's just working away from a righty, set up off the plate. And that's, I mean, when you're on.
I showed him something earlier in the at-bat off the plate like that ran back more. That was a little sinker, but it never was a strike. But the hitter has to anticipate it's going to do what it did earlier, and so he takes a swing at a pitch that's 3 inches off the plate.
Last 3 outs of a perfect game. Have you ever had that moment as like a baseball watcher where you're just nervous as hell watching something unfold?
I mean, not to like talk about it, the no-hitter we threw in Mexico was interesting.
Yeah. Just
because I only threw 6 innings of it, so I watched 3 innings of it probably like that, right? We had 3 relievers come in, and they did an unbelievable job, obviously. But it was my third start in the major leagues, and I'm watching 3 guys that I don't know that really know that well go and get 9 outs, and it's kind of a cool thing. It doesn't happen that often in our game outside of a walk-off hit that you get that kind of anticipation to one. We did it, like, in football, it's like the Hail Mary or whatever, but, or you're up and the team's driving, right? Like, that's probably the more apt analogy to like this feeling, but, yeah, pretty cool. Only 24 of them in however many baseball games we've played. So,
yeah. So on the no-hitter side, or it doesn't even have to necessarily be a no-hitter, because a guy can put a freak swing and bloop one out there, and you could have arguably had a better outing than maybe an outing where you do pull off a no-hitter. But in terms of just having one of those days where everything is on and you have a chance to do something special or at least dominate, how quick into a start do you know that you've got it going for you and that you could do something special, whether it's a no-hitter or just a complete game shutout or just one of those pure domination outings?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really talk to the no-hitter thing. It's obviously not something that I've done. The ones for me, it's weird because you probably have 5 a year that you get through 3 or 4 innings and you're like feeling really good. Maybe it's one hit, but like my pitch count is in a good spot. I've struck out 6 guys through 4 innings. I'm still at 48 pitches. Like, all right. And then the moment that happens, it's like you give up 2 in the 5th, right?
Yeah.
But when you get into like that 6th, 7th inning, it's a different thing. The complete game shutout I threw in Arizona, the last 3 outs, I remember just like, because I threw two complete games in 2019, I think, but on 2 runs and 1 run. And so I remember last year being, thinking like, this isn't going to happen. Like, I hope they mess this up. And you kind of lose that little bit of, like, I'm dictating X amount of this, right? And so that one got done, and it was like a big sigh of relief. But Yeah, I mean, I would say probably the best game I ever threw was I threw a complete game on 15 strikeouts with 1 run against the Padres. But I had the 16 strikeout game like 3 weeks before that. And so I kind of had this like recency of knowing what I was going through thing, which probably helped. But yeah, it was a couple of years between really good ones, I guess. But
what level of like I'm a badass MF do you have to do that? Like you probably have to think that you're the baddest dude on the planet when you get into the later innings and you're emptying the tank at that moment. So where does the confidence
I think what I just said is like it's the most vulnerable you feel, right? You feel like you've been given this like unbelievable, like at some point, the deeper you go into games, the more lucky you feel to be there because it's just kind of uncharted waters at some point. Most of us throw 5 to 6.5 innings a start now. And
yeah,
holy shit, we're in the 8th and everything's coming together. And the manager's in the right mood to leave me in there. And I'm being efficient enough. And the other team is participating because they're swinging early enough. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that have to happen. And yeah, like, starting pitchers can dictate a lot, but we feel like we dictate everything all the time anyway, and that doesn't happen all the time. So, yeah, it just takes this weird combination of factors to get into a game like that. And, you gain a lot of respect for guys that can do that with any sort of consistency or that level of success, right? I don't think, Domingo Germán is not Clayton Kershaw, right? But there's some sort of belief that he has this thing inside of him now that not everyone does because he did it, right? And I know there's a lot of stuff off the field with him and the sticky and the whatever, but he still went and got 27 straight outs against the major league lineup, and there's something to be said about that from a competitive standpoint. I don't care. Like, I'm not touching on the other stuff.
Yeah.
People can make their own opinion as can I, but he did that, and it's hard to do. And some of the greatest players ever haven't ever come close to throwing perfect games. Right. So that's a pretty cool accomplishment.
You mentioned one thing that kind of spurred a thought in my head is that how deep into games has become somewhat uncharted territory for starters, even some of the best in the game, but actually everybody in the game at this point. And how much pressure, since it's not really as much of an expectation anymore, even from the best pitchers in the game, how much pressure do you put on yourself to be economical versus just let me go out there and, have 5 or 6 of the best innings I can? Or, how much do you want to try to go 7 or 8 sometimes? I know obviously the goal is every time to go complete game shutout, but how much pressure is there to be economical for yourself?
No, I think there's like reality, right? Like reality happens in the bullpen. Reality happens when you wake up on that morning. How do I feel? Reality happens when you're getting warmed up. Reality happens when you start playing catch. Reality comes to you when you're throwing your bullpen. And then your first couple throws, like, you mostly kind of know where you're at, right? And so I think as weird as it sounds, like, I was one of the first groups of kids that had a pitch count in Little League.
Yeah.
So when I first got to Little League, it was based on innings. You would throw, if you threw 5 innings, you had to have X amount of days off. And then my 11 and 12, whatever, my last couple of years in Little League, it was based on pitch count. And so I remember like really trying to like not throw as many pitches. And so I think for me, it's always been, I think it was six innings and 85 pitches that you got. And so I've always had 15 per, like my whole goals have always been no more than 1 run per 3 innings, 45 pitches per 3 innings, 1 strikeout per inning. Like, I've had these goals that have stuck with me my whole life.
Huh.
And so
very cool.
Like 6 and 2 is kind of my midline. Like, everybody talks about your A stuff, your B stuff, and your whatever. Like, my whole goal has always been to have my B stuff and go 6 and 2 at every level, everywhere. Like, even in college, you look like my ERA is always right around 3. And my walks are always right around 1 every 3 innings. My strikeouts are always right above 1 per inning, right? Like kind of what you manifest, I think in some way reflects like what you end up doing. And it's a cool thing, right? Like 2021 was probably my best year in the major leagues. And I kind of did all those things, right? It was like 9.5 punch outs per 9, 2.8, I think, walks per 9, something like that. I threw over 200 innings because 33 starts. I threw a little over 6 per. Like you start accumulating these like certain numbers, and they lead to the correct ones at the end of the year. But it starts with this. I can only give up 1 run per 3 innings, and if I get through 4 on 1, like, all right, we're rolling here. Instead of this, like you're saying, everyone wants to go out and throw a complete game shutout. Like, yeah, you do. But then there's like this bargaining with yourself during games of like, I gave up 2 in the first. Like, how can I make this a sub-3 ERA start?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I think. So then let's be economical. If I can get into the 7th and be good from here on, it'll be sub-3.
Yeah.
I just looked at the baseball reference page. 6 big league seasons. You're just under. If you were to take out the 9 relief appearances that you've got in your career, you're a little over 6 innings. What?
I have 10.
You have 10?
I had 1 my rookie year. I came off the DL and relieved Kirsch. I gave up like 4 earned and cost him a win against the Cubs.
The numbers have normalized here, man. So you've got 106 big league starts. You've gone 638 in the 3rd innings, which is right around 6 innings per start. You have a 3.02 career ERA, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Is that as a starter?
That's your career ERA. That's factoring
so minus those 10, it's under. Okay.
Let's go to the splits. Let's go to the splits and look at your numbers as a start. This is good. And then we'll let you go. As a starting pitcher, Walker Buehler is, 106 starts. 628 divided by 106. You were at 5.92 innings per start.
We're getting there.
But a 2.88 ERA, 9.7 Ks per 9, and about 2.5 walks per 9. So you're doing exactly what you're manifesting, man.
Yep. That's the goal.
288. Yeah. I have it up right now too. Jesus.
You're the man. We appreciate you. Enjoy your 4th of July festivities and enjoy your All-Star festivities.
Yeah, you guys as well. Enjoy it up there.